nice to have you. We have to start a show called Politics. We have to start it with John Kennedy. Before we start the program, I have to ask you a question about journalists. Journalist to journalist, okay?
Sure.
Okay, this is an AP story moved last week on the wires out of Albany, New York. I don't know why Albany. New York's Democratic Party chairwoman said Friday the mutual friend has told her John F. Kennedy Jr. is interested in running for the U.S. Senate against Alphonse D'Amato, Republican incumbent. Let me ask you this. What do you think of the quality of journalism which has a person, a writer, saying that they heard from somebody who heard from somebody who heard from somebody they were running for the Senate? Rate that as a journalist, that story, John Kennedy.
Well, I have a feeling that you're really asking me if it's true.
Part of the answer could be that.
Why don't I just dispense with that off the bat and say it's absolutely not that we're running a magazine, and as you no doubt know, that's more than a full-time job. And, you know, I understand part of the... someone once said to me, you know, journalists are in the business of harvesting attention, and if that's what that does, then so be it. But it's not true.
But the harvesting attention is true anyway for most of us. Let me ask you this. You got through law school. You went to a quality law school, NYU. You were assistant DA for a while. You put away a couple people. You're pretty good assistant. Why do you throw away law and presumably what goes with it, politics, and go into journalism and start a magazine basically for young people?
Well, I'm sure you know a lot of lawyers that are looking for career changes.
They're miserable.
But yeah, but
were you miserable?
No, I had the greatest job in the world. Being a DA is a wonderful job.
Marcia Clark can use some help out there,
yeah,
you know, couldn't she?
She is. She's leaving the law, from what I hear. Yeah. But you know, I had an idea and been kind of playing with it for a while in my head with my partner, and we thought that the time was right. I'd been there for 4 years, and it seemed like the best time to take a flyer if you're ever going to take one. And so we kind of put it together, put a business plan together, and it started to gather momentum. And it looked like the idea would catch, and it was enormously sort of exciting to be part of it, so we just went with it.
Well, the name of the magazine, just to flash it up there, it's like a book report here. Here it is, the George Magazine, the latest edition with Charles Barkley on the cover. I've got to ask you, what does Charles Barkley, Robert De Niro, and Cindy Crawford, what do these three people have in common? They have graced your cover all wearing George Washington costumes.
Well, they're not politicians, as you can see. But what we were trying to do, I mean, as the title suggests, is really talk about politics and showcase it in a different way. And you have to catch people's attention. And what we wanted to do is George Washington is an icon, and he's an American icon, and we wanted to use other American icons to kind of play with that iconography. And all of them, I mean, the first cover with Cindy Crawford was about politics as a purely commercial venture. That is what the kind of icon that she is. The second cover, really, we had 2 or 3 articles about politically oriented films that were coming out at that time. There was Nixon was coming out, American President.
What did you think of Nixon, the movie?
I thought it was a good movie, but I'm not sure as American history, it wasn't all that useful, but I enjoyed it as a movie. And the last one was, you know, Charles Barkley is sports. He wants to run for governor. He's enormously popular. He's a larger-than-life figure. So, you know, if you're going to do it about politics and popular culture, then you should use people from popular culture to illustrate the idea.
What did you break? Any news on the Charles Barkley front? Here's a guy that can shoot a basket like pop, like it's in the basket. It's the most amazing action in the world. How's that equip him for being a governor of a state?
Well, I mean, people asked Bill Bradley, obviously, the same thing when you know, after he was a New York Knick, and he talked about running for the Senate. But I think what Charles Barkley is, you know, as I say in the magazine, he is someone who has thought about the issues, but more importantly, he's got a name, he's got money, he's got the audacity of a winner, and people have won elections with a lot less. So I figure his chances are certainly as good as anybody else's.
Do you think we're getting into a kind of a post-partisan or post-electoral almost politics where people from outside of politics, magazine editors, for example, Steve Forbes. I mean, what do you think of it, a magazine editor getting into politics? Steve Forbes, Barkley running, Bradley having been a senator for a number of years. Are we getting beyond the usual suspects and we're tired of the usual suspects?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure it's all that different. I think historically Americans have always been frustrated with what they perceive as inside Washington and outside. But I mean, what's interesting to us and what we hear is that I think that, as you know, party identification has never been lower. Right. People are, I think, intrigued by novelty. And when you have a new face comes up, It's a way of kind of spicing up what's a long election. Certainly folks in the media like it. It makes their job more interesting, and I think it's the same. It catches people's attention, and it makes the whole process more exciting. So,
a lot of people that call on television shows like this, when they have a point of view, I can tell you this very hot point of view, they're usually on the right, or right of center, I should say, occasionally liberals. They don't think they're beyond party labels. They feel very liberal or very conservative, even angry conservative. You said in the magazine, as you pointed out in your opening letter, that 40% of people don't even identify anymore with that stuff. Well, how did you find it out?
Well, I mean, you can read polls here and there. I mean, I don't mean to confuse people not feeling passionate or about politics, but more that they don't necessarily, our parents, you voted one way because their parents voted another way, and people don't do that anymore. People really approach politics, I think, as a consumer, and they say, who is this person, and what can they do for me, and do I like them, and do I connect with them, and maybe they'll vote Republican, and maybe they'll vote Democrat, but it's really, they don't have that kind of fealty to a party label that they had a generation before.
Well, if it's more like a cafeteria where you go in, I sort of like this guy, I like Giuliani this week, but maybe I won't like him next time. I like Bill Weld this time, maybe I'll like Kerry next time. Are you like that?
I mean,
in other words, are you free-spirited? Not yet. You're moving towards post-partisan.